"Don't kick me, I'm already on the ground," the waitress begged. Then, a secret CEO did the unexpected. What if a moment of sheer cruelty could trigger the most beautiful transformation in a person's life? Julia leaned her back against the cold brick wall behind Tony's diner, her uniform still clinging to her skin, damp with the coffee a customer had purposefully spilled on her just moments earlier. At 34, she had become accustomed to the invisible wounds, the kind that accumulate from juggling 3 jobs just to keep her 8-year-old son fed and a roof over his head. Her hands trembled as she wiped away tears, not from the sting on her arm, but from the customer's parting shot. "Maybe if you weren't so clumsy, you wouldn't be stuck serving people like me." She was oblivious to the fact that inside the diner, a man in worn jeans and a plain button-down shirt had seen it all. David Chen, a man whose net worth exceeded that of many small countries, had been sitting unnoticed in a corner booth. But what he had just witnessed caused a tightness in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. "Where are you tuning in from tonight?" Julia had been an employee at Tony's diner for 8 months, ever since the factory where she assembled car components for 6 years had shut its doors. Her earnings barely covered the rent for the cramped apartment she and her son called home, but she saw honor in the work, having learned long ago to find dignity in any labor that provided for her family. Most patrons were decent, like the weary truckers who left generous tips or the elderly couples who offered a warm smile with their coffee refills. Recently, however, a more challenging clientele had emerged, people who seemed to derive satisfaction from reminding her of her circumstances. David began frequenting the diner 3 weeks prior, consistently ordering black coffee and a slice of whatever pie was freshest. His simple attire, older model pickup truck, and soft-spoken manner led Julia to classify him as just another working man, perhaps a contractor or a mechanic, someone who appreciated the worth of a hard-earned dollar. She had observed his calloused hands, his unfailing use of please and thank you, and his habit of leaving a $20 bill for a $12 meal. What Julia couldn't have known was that David had been touring diners and restaurants nationwide for months. He wasn't there as the CEO of Chen Industries, but as an individual seeking to understand the establishments he was contemplating acquiring. His corporation specialized in revitalizing struggling businesses into flourishing community hubs, but he knew that the true essence of a place couldn't be found on a spreadsheet. He needed to experience it firsthand, to see how people behaved when they believed no one of consequence was looking. The customer who had shamed Julia, a regular named Frank, appeared to relish making the staff uneasy. David had observed this behavior for weeks, the intentionally spilled drinks, the cutting remarks about Julia's appearance, and Frank's practice of leaving only exact change, without a tip, after she had cleaned up the messes he deliberately made. Each time, David felt his jaw tighten. But this evening, a boundary had been crossed. As Julia re-entered the diner, attempting to regain her composure, Frank was already waving his cup impatiently for a refill. "Let's go," he shouted. "And try not to spill it this time." The other patrons shifted uncomfortably, yet no one spoke up. It was then that David rose silently from his corner booth, his mind made up. David approached Frank's table with slow, deliberate steps, his presence commanding a hush over the entire diner. Julia was already on her way with a fresh pot of coffee, her shoulders rigid with apprehension. Frank glared at David, annoyed. "What's it to you? I'm waiting for service here." "I've been observing you," David stated calmly, his voice imbued with a power that silenced the room. "For weeks, I've watched you treat this woman with absolute disrespect." His tone wasn't one of anger, but of a profound disappointment that resonated more than any shout. Frank's face flushed. "Stay out of it, buddy. If she can't do the job, she should find another." He then turned to Julia, who was frozen, coffee pot in hand. "Well, are you going to pour or just stand there?" Julia's hands shook as she started to tip the pot. She had tolerated this behavior because she desperately needed the job. Just yesterday, her son's school sent another notice about unpaid lunch fees. The electricity bill was overdue. She couldn't risk losing a single day's wages. But as the coffee began to stream, David gently placed his hand over the cup. "No," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Julia, you're not required to serve someone who treats you as less than human." He then locked eyes with Frank. And you need to realize something. Every single person in this diner has a life, people who care for them, and their own set of dreams and hardships, just like you. The distinction is that most of us don't use our own pain as a weapon against others. Frank shot up from his seat, the chair screeching against the floor. Who in the world do you think you are to talk to me like that? You're just some working-class nobody. David's expression remained tranquil, though a fire sparked in his eyes. Perhaps, but I know the difference between a man and a bully. He retrieved a $100 bill from his wallet and laid it on Frank's table. This covers your meals for the next month, but there's a condition. You will start treating every employee here with the respect they deserve, or you will take your business elsewhere. The diner was utterly still. Julia felt tears forming again, but this time they stemmed from a place other than humiliation. If this story is resonating with you, please give the video a like. No one had ever defended her in such a way, championed her dignity when she felt powerless to do so herself. Frank, visibly flustered and mortified, threw some cash on his own table and stormed out, muttering curses. But David's work was not done. As the diner's ambiance slowly normalized, Julia noticed her hands were still trembling. She carefully set down the coffee pot and looked at David, her expression a mix of gratitude and bewilderment. "You didn't need to do that," she murmured. "I could have managed." David's face softened. "I'm sure you could have. You've been managing for weeks, but simply because you can endure something doesn't mean you should have to." He gestured to his booth. "May we speak for a moment?" Julia glanced at Tony in the kitchen, who was feigning preoccupation with flipping burgers. He gave her a subtle nod. The dinner rush had subsided, and the remaining patrons were content. She followed David and slid into the seat opposite him. "I'm David," he said, offering his hand, "and I need to apologize to you." "Apologize? For what?" "For sitting here for 3 weeks, watching that man treat you with disrespect and not intervening until tonight." David's voice was filled with sincere regret. "I've been visiting to get a feel for this place. I am in the restaurant industry and was thinking of making an offer to purchase Tony's Diner." Julia's heart plummeted. Another corporate takeover, another establishment likely to fail within months, leaving her unemployed once more. "Oh," she managed to say. David perceived the alarm in her eyes and quickly added, "But what I've discovered here isn't something you can find in a business proposal. I've seen you work multiple shifts, cover for sick colleagues, and treat every patron with kindness, even those who are undeserving. You remember their coffee preferences. You check on your elderly regulars to ensure they're all right. And you do all this while navigating your own personal battles." "How do you know about my battles?" Julia asked, a defensive edge to her voice. "Because I see them," David replied gently. "I was raised in a home where my mother worked 3 jobs, just as you do. I recognize that look in a person's eyes when they are mentally calculating every dollar, when they are utterly exhausted but cannot afford a moment's rest." He paused, selecting his next words with care. "Have you ever experienced a situation like this? Share with us in the comments." Then he went on, "Julia, what if I were to tell you that you've already demonstrated everything necessary? That observing you at work has taught me more about leadership and integrity than any business school ever could." Julia stared at David, her mind racing to comprehend his words. "I don't follow. What do you mean you're in the restaurant industry?" David reached into his wallet once more, this time producing a simple business card. Julia had to read it twice before the title registered. David Chen, CEO, Chen Industries. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. I'm someone who is convinced that the most successful businesses are founded on treating people with decency," David stated plainly. "And you have shown me precisely what that entails." He leaned forward. "Julia, I want to acquire this diner, but I am determined to do it correctly. I aim to transform it into an establishment that honors the community it serves, and I want you to be my partner in this endeavor." "I have no knowledge of running a business," Julia countered, but David shook his head. "You understand everything that is truly important. You know how to make people feel valued, how to persevere, how to care for others even when you are facing your own difficulties." His voice became more fervent. "I am offering you a partnership, Julia. Not merely a job, but a tangible stake in realizing this place's full potential. Julia felt the ground shift beneath her. I can't. I have a son, and I've never... She trailed off, feeling overwhelmed. Your son is the very reason this can succeed, David said kindly. Every choice we make will be aimed at creating a place where families like yours can prosper. Better pay, healthcare, profit sharing, college funds for employees' children. He paused. I have been searching for an individual who grasps what it takes to build something genuine, something with purpose. Watching you these past weeks, observing how you treat people, how you refuse to give up, that is exactly what I've been looking for. Tears began to stream down Julia's face, but for the first time in a long while, they were tears of hope. Why choose me? You could have anyone. Because anyone can manage figures on a ledger, David answered. But not everyone possesses a heart that truly sees people the way you do. Not everyone understands that the most crucial aspect of any business is how it makes people feel about themselves. If you're finding this story compelling, subscribe to our channel for more uplifting narratives. He reached across the table, his hand gently covering hers. Julia, what would you say if I told you that 6 months from now, you could be the general manager of the most respected community restaurant in 3 states? 6 months later, Julia stood in the beautifully renovated dining room of the establishment now known as Julia's Table. She watched as her 8-year-old son, Michael, meticulously placed fresh flowers on every table. The change was more profound than she could have ever dreamed. The worn-out vinyl booths were gone, replaced by comfortable seating. The glaring fluorescent lights had been swapped for warm, inviting fixtures, and the walls were now adorned with art from local creators, including a charming painting by Michael of the restaurant's new garden. Yet the most significant changes were more than just cosmetic. Every employee was now earning a living wage and had access to healthcare benefits. The team included 2 other single mothers who had been struggling, a retired teacher seeking part-time engagement, and 3 teenagers saving for college with support from the restaurant's education fund. Julia had unearthed a natural talent for organization, training, and motivating others, abilities David had seen in her long before she recognized them herself. Tony had remained as the head chef and a part owner. His classic recipes were now enhanced by seasonal specials Julia crafted by listening to customers' stories about their grandmother's cooking. The restaurant had become the very thing David had envisioned, a genuine community hub where people gathered not just for a meal, but for a sense of belonging. A customer board near the entrance was covered with thank you notes, job announcements, and offers of assistance from neighbors. Julia had initiated a program allowing patrons to purchase meals for those in need, with no judgment. The wall of kindness, as Michael had dubbed it, was never bare for long. David continued to visit regularly, though he now preferred to sit at the counter, letting Julia serve him coffee as they discussed plans for expansion. 3 other communities had already expressed interest in opening their own Julia's Table locations, each to be led by someone with Julia's compassionate spirit and understanding of life's struggles. As Julia watched Michael guide an elderly couple to their preferred table by the window, she was transported back to that cold night 6 months ago when she had felt so invisible and broken. She marveled at how one person's choice to acknowledge her worth had transformed not only her life, but the lives of everyone who now entered these doors. Frank never came back, but Julia often wondered if he too had learned a lesson that night. She hoped so. She had learned that holding on to resentment was a weight too heavy to carry when there was so much happiness to be found in creating something beautiful. David materialized beside her, holding 2 mugs of coffee. A penny for your thoughts, he said. Just reflecting on how everything can change in an instant, Julia replied, accepting the warm mug. How a single act of kindness can create ripples that travel further than we can ever imagine. That's what you do here every day, David said. You are the one creating those ripples. If this story resonated with you, please remember to like, share your thoughts in a comment, and subscribe for more inspiring tales of how ordinary individuals can bring about extraordinary change. Thank you for following Julia's journey. And always remember, sometimes the most profound action we can take is to simply see one another.